Good morning. How's it going? Good. You want to do a short little interview before you do your run?
And then on Friday you're playing with us.
It's a good question. I've got a hobby where I chat with strangers for 5 minutes and I time it, just to respect your time, about any topic you want to discuss. And it's typically about something that you
It's
really...
not some study with some ulterior motive, right?
Everything is.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I'm interested in what people think is true.
Huh.
And then I ask Socratic questions to examine how you can be so sure that it is.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
You want to do it? Just short, and I'll time it for 5.
I study economics, so I like behavioral economics. So.
Ooh, dude, I think we'll find some interest here. Would you be willing to let me record it?
Always listen to The Hidden Brain and things like that.
What is that one?
Hidden Brain?
Yeah.
Shankar. It's on NPR.
Oh.
I can't remember. Some professor from the University of Chicago. He has a podcast called The Hidden Brain. It's all about behavioral economics.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, there is usually some overlap in critical thinking and motivational interviewing and that type of stuff. But the way that this goes is, are you okay if I record the conversation?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I should introduce myself first. I'm Anthony.
Anthony, I'm Danny.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned economics because these conversations are kind of like, you remember back in school when you would do a really long math problem and you'd get to an answer and then the teacher would say, now go back and double check your work?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where I want to examine a conclusion that you've arrived at, a belief that you think is true, and then I'm going to ask Socratic questions, friendly, non-confrontational.
Trying to figure out, like, if we go through the process and then test it, see if it's true.
Essentially, yeah. Like, did you miss a step?
Yeah, exactly.
Was there an error here?
Yeah, I
like,
get that.
because then maybe the result that you have in your brain of what you think is true might be off.
Some miscalculation.
Right. So these talks can be about anything,
Yeah.
but the fun ones are the ones where it's a belief that informs you or influences you on a daily basis. Like supernatural stuff can be fun. Do you think a God exists? Do you believe in karma? Do you think magic's a thing? Have you ever seen a ghost? That type of stuff.
Yeah, that is interesting. 'Cause I don't believe in ghosts. I've never seen ghosts. Yeah, this is all philosophical stuff, huh?
Kinda. So what do you think is really true that you would say impacts who Danny is on a daily basis?
Well, I try to be a logical thinker. Try to think rationally. So yeah, a lot of the decisions I make, I try to base on data. Like I said, I study economics, and so I'm an analyst. So a lot of the stuff I do, I try to base on data.
Okay. Do you just restrict that to your work life, or do you actually find that that it impacts your daily stuff? Your daily.
I think I try to have that impact my my personal life as well. I know all the faults and fallacies about like anecdotal data.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, I did this one time, and so it must be true all the other times. Things like that.
You would not believe how many people I run into here that say, I prayed to a God, and the thing that I prayed for came true 2 years later, and they draw that correlation between the two. And I find it so interesting.
Yeah, I love this subject. It's a fascinating subject.
You would probably like my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because I've had lots of conversations here and also on some of the universities here in town with people, and what we find is that the conclusion that people arrive at when they do go back and check the work,
so like,
it's like, ooh, something's off there, or why did I ever plug in that value?
And then you have the what is it? You'll have this process where you show them, like, okay, this is your outcome, and like, you see you made a mistake here. Do you think you should change the process, or do you think you should go back and review? Like, no, I don't think so.
That's an interesting thing.
I can't remember what that's called, but
well, I don't know what that's called, but what I found is that me telling somebody that's where you screwed up is not as effective as letting them discover it on their own.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what this is. That's what I'm doing. Is I'm asking. It's called street epistemology. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called street epistemology.
Street epistemology.
So it's basically like taking the Socratic method onto the street. and asking people, how did you arrive at your God belief? How did you arrive to think karma's real?
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually run into a lot of logical thinkers and rational people in this society.
Yeah.
Most people do tend to hold a lot of beliefs that they formed from pretty irrational conclusions earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I'm a logical person. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm smart or I'm intelligent. I don't consider myself, a super smart person, but I like to think I learn from my mistakes. So, whereas most people, a lot of people I know just go off of like emotional decisions, things like that. So
yeah, a lot of it's personal experience, or I was raised with it. Not usually. What they usually discover by the end of even a short talk is that they don't have good reasons to hold the beliefs that they think are really true.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to religion.
And watching that discovery happen on camera is like the coolest thing to see.
Especially when you talk about religion, you're confronted with the idea. So you have the God theory, right? The idea that we have this higher power, etc., that made us a creator and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, that idea is just as crazy as, say, the Big Bang. They're both crazy.
Define crazy.
Well,
unlikely.
Yeah, they're both fantastical, outrageous ideas.
Okay. Okay.
It's just.
But are you open to either proposition?
Yeah. I am.
Good. Okay.
I mean,
Me too.
We're creatures of habit, right? So I've been brought up in a religious family. I've been brought up with religion, but I pray to a God. Do I ever get an answer? No. Is that crazy?
Here's my question to you then. Is praying to a God and not hearing an answer confirmation that it doesn't exist?
No, but it's more of a cathartic experience for me, It's the same thing as therapy, I guess.
When you do pray.
Yeah.
Do you pray? You do pray? Or not so much anymore, or what?
Yeah, every once in a while. Not as often. But
okay,
like
that's so interesting.
Like I said, we're creatures of habit, so I've been brought up in reading the Bible and all this stuff, and the things that you read in there are it's like you have to believe in God. If not, you're going to hell. So you've been brought up with the idea that hell is this real place that you can go to after you die. So that's frightening. So you kind of do it out of fear, and as you get older, it's like that. So as you get older, that fear is instilled in me. So I do it kind of out of habit, but also out of fear. So almost the same thing, like when you're a kid, you have your parents tell you like, don't touch that because it's bad. Something's going to happen to you. And you go and you touch it and you see, well, it doesn't really hurt me right now, but it could in the future, and that one time that it does hurt you, whatever it might be, you think, oh man, my parents were right.
You're very intriguing to me because it sounds like you're saying I'm a very rational person, and if we were to rewind this 5 minutes ago, I'd probably say you're probably a non-believer. But then you say that you pray, but it sounds like it's a cathartic experience. It relaxes you or something. You get some sort of physical benefit from it or emotional benefit from it.
Yeah, like I said.
But are you doing it because it's fear-based or because you actually think it's true?
No, it's kind of like gambling. There's a risk and reward. I don't know if it works, but I'm hoping it will.
Okay. Wow, this is really cool.
Right? Yeah,
Let me ask you this.
It's an interesting subject to me.
Can we focus strictly on prayer?
Yeah.
Why do you pray specifically? What do you get out of it?
The hope that something will happen. Yeah. And you make a good point now, because it's like, I see that I pray, and sometimes the things that you want happen, but most often they don't. And it's hard to tell when they do because it could be coincidental. But at the same time, it's like it's throwing pennies in a wishing well, right? It's like, it's really nothing to pray. All I do is put my hands together and say a silent prayer or whatever. it's not like I have to go climb a mountain and go pray to a God. So there's no real, it's easy to do, you know? It's not,
There's no skin in the game.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Kind of like that?
Yeah. It'd be a lot different.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. So
No, yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. It's not like I have to sacrifice something. All I do is pray, and I hope I get it. And if I do, I do. And if I don't, well, I'll keep praying again, right?
Could you go the whole rest of your life?
I don't.
I'm sorry.
But I don't rest everything on that one prayer, you know.
What do you mean? What happens?
Well, it's not like I say. It's not like in college. Like I don't pray like, oh, please let me get an A on this test. I don't say, okay, I did the prayer, now I don't have to study, you know. I study a lot, and then I also end it with a prayer or something, you know. But I don't want to come across as like I'm praying all the time or something.
Yeah.
I don't do it that often.
Okay, so that's a good example. Like, you have a test. You realize at some level that maybe praying alone isn't going to be good enough. You decide to study, but then just for added measure, you'll throw in a prayer,
Yeah.
just in case that might help you do better on the test.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe some outside, some outside force help me. I don't know.
Have you ever done well on a test where you studied for it and then you added in a prayer, a dash of prayer?
I don't remember.
But what I'm getting at is, have you ever done well on a test and then looked back and said, was that my studying or the extra little dash of prayer that I tossed in that made me do well on this thing?
Yes, but it wasn't because of me. So it wasn't because of something I did, or it wasn't something like I took the test and all of a sudden, I knew the knowledge. Oh man, I remember. It was like I went to go take the test, and the test was so easy. I was like, thank you, God. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's like, for example, like say I'm going to take a driving test. I read all this stuff. They tell you you're going to take a test for driving test. There's going to be a written part, and then there's going to be the driving portion, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I study, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I have this, so I'm going to pray to God, please God, let me pass this test because I really want to get my driver's license. And then I go take the test, and I take the written test, and I'm like, oh man, I feel good about it. But I'm really not strong on the driving part. I don't think I'm going to do well. And I go take the driving part, and they say, oh, you know what? We don't have a vehicle for today, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to scratch the driving part. You did good on the written part, so you're good. We'll give you your driver's license. I kind of lucked out. So situations like that,
Okay.
where I think like, yes, God did something in the vehicle,
Okay. You tell yourself this,
Huh?
but do you actually believe that it's true?
I don't know. I guess I want to.
You want to believe it's true?
Mm-hmm. Because, you have the opposite side of that, right? You have all the bad stuff that happens in life. And, so, that's the good thing, a good outcome. So you have a bad outcome. You're praying to God because someone, is sick or something bad happens to you, and prayer doesn't come through. What do you say? Stuff like that's happened too.
This might be my last question because I
Yeah.
want to get you back on the trail. How do you tell the difference between a prayer literally being answered by a God and it just being coincidental and you lucked out?
I guess it depends if I prayed before,
But even if you prayed before and this event happens, like the car is not available for you to do the test, how can you look back at that event and determine whether it was coincidental or it was the prayer being answered?
Honestly, you can't. And it's not like I'm keeping track of this data anyway. So it's not. I tend to. I try not to thrive in the past. So if something happens, I move on. So if something like that were to happen, it's not like I'm going to remember, like, oh, I remember that one time God came through for me.
Does the rational side of you, when you're working with economics and numbers, do you ever look at historical trends?
All the time, yeah.
Why wouldn't you do the same thing with these experiences and determine whether or not the prayer worked or whether it was coincidental?
Well, it's not like I said, I don't have hard data. It's not like I'm tracking this stuff. So every time a prayer comes through, I don't, put a check mark in the God column, and I don't keep track of it. So,
One last question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you can't tell the difference between just lucking out and it just happening or a prayer being answered by a God, why believe it at all?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Like I said before, I really don't have any skin in the game. So it's too easy for me just to go and say a silent prayer. If I had to do like back in the day where I had to sacrifice a lamb on top of Mount Zion, probably wouldn't be praying that much. But yeah, the idea is just to, you can put your hands together, say a silent prayer. It's easy.
Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. And I've got a card here with my email on it. If you want to meet again and talk further, or if you just want to, whatever, you can reach out and contact me if you want.
Okay.
Thank you so very much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, that's really enjoyable. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Watch part 2 here.